Hi, and welcome to the first canceled news of 2021. I'm Adam Yenser, now with COVID. I took a few weeks off for the holidays, and in that time I missed several enormous disasters. There was the Nashville bombing, there was this disgraceful insurrection in DC, Wonder Woman 2 came out. I'll get to all of those horrible tragedies in a bit, but first, as I mentioned, I have coronavirus. I tested positive on Monday. Now, I've heard that COVID makes you lose your sense of taste, so my plan was to attack the virus with vitamin D-filled orange juice immediately after brushing my teeth. Unfortunately, I'm not one of the ones who lost their sense of taste. At least not yet. But I am quarantining. The video and sound quality might be a little lower tonight because my usual crew isn't here. Like fellow news anchor Kris, who also had coronavirus, I've been very strictly quarantining in my home, except to go outside and fight with cyclists. But hopefully I get better quickly. I know a lot of people who have COVID right now. Some of them are having a tougher time with it. My heart goes out to everybody who's kung flu fighting. Now, obviously the big story this week was the disgraceful attack in DC. I'll be talking about that a little bit more later with my guest this week, Kassy Dillon. She's the founder of Lone Conservative, and this is true, she's also the person who first captured Trigglypuff on camera. Kassy will be here a little bit later, but first, here's what else has been in the news the past few weeks. Tom Cruise was caught on tape screaming at the crew of Mission Impossible 7 for violating social distancing guidelines. He demanded that everyone stay at least 6 feet or 2 Tom Cruises apart. On Christmas Day, a suicide bomber detonated a massive bomb on 2nd Avenue in Nashville. Now, thankfully, no one else was seriously injured, but the devastation is unbelievable. For comparison, here is the old spaghetti factory on 2nd Avenue before the blast, and then here's the same street after the blast. Never forgetty. Moscow is planning to test a 15,000 mile per hour nuclear missile that it claims could beat any defense and destroy Texas. The joke's on them. Texas is going to be destroyed by liberals fleeing California way before their missile gets there. Larry King has been hospitalized with COVID. He's in a high-risk group, but hopefully he'll make it through. Larry King is a tough guy. He's already survived cancer, diabetes, multiple heart attacks, and the meteor that killed the dinosaurs. And he beat the 10 plagues in the Old Testament, so I think he can beat this one. The highly anticipated movie Wonder Woman 1984 was released on Christmas to mostly terrible reviews, but for some reason they're already working on another sequel, and I have an exclusive look at the first poster for the new movie. Wonder Woman 1974. Apparently she's the strongest woman in the world. Vice President Mike Pence became one of the first government officials to get the COVID vaccine. Now, Mike Pence says he trusts vaccines and has already been immunized against the flu, polio, and gayness. Now, it makes sense that they would give the vaccine to Mike Pence first, because if it gives him autism, how would we know? The stimulus package approved by Congress includes numerous payments to foreign governments, including $10 million for a gender studies program in Pakistan. Now, the way gender studies works in Pakistan is if you're allowed to study, you're a boy. Former President George W. Bush sent out his annual Christmas card featuring a painting he did of the Statue of Liberty. You know, President Bush is actually not a bad artist. I give that like 9 out of 11. Denmark is launching an animated children's show about a man with a gigantically long penis. That's right, in addition to canceled news, I'm also getting my own children's show. A paramedic in South Dakota proposed to his boyfriend during their COVID vaccine appointment. The proposal was witnessed by their families and by Bill Gates, who's tracking their microchips. A New York woman is facing charges after police stormed her apartment and seized 21 fake guns. It's all part of their Nerf buyback program. After the Senate failed to increase stimulus payments to $2,000, Mitch McConnell's front door was vandalized with the words, "Where's my money?" Judging by the spelling, it's not in student loan debt. It was revealed that Alec Baldwin's wife, Hilaria, has been faking her Spanish accent. Her real name is Hillary, and she's from Boston. Here she is in action.
We have, how do you say it? Cucumber?
Cucumbers.
We have red pepper. We have, of course, the critical cebolla.
Her Spanish impression is almost as bad as her husband's Trump impression. Venezuela plans to shift to an entirely digital currency. The digital currency will have the same value as real Venezuelan money and will be known as shitcoin. The Weeknd released a new music video in which he appears with a swollen, distorted face. He now goes by The Weeknd at Bernie's. That video is for his new song, I Can't Feel My Face, Were There Peanuts in That? Although the president was absent, Vanilla Ice performed at Donald Trump's annual Mar-a-Lago New Year's Eve party. Now, the president decided to be absent when he heard Vanilla Ice was performing. But Donald Trump actually did this for tax purposes. It turns out that hiring Vanilla Ice is a charitable donation. To celebrate its move to Peacock, NBC released never-before-seen footage of The Office. Not to be outdone, CBS released their own never-before-seen footage, every episode of Bob Hart's Abishola. According to the CDC, 21 Americans have experienced life-threatening reactions to the Pfizer COVID vaccine. In fact, I think we actually have a shot of one of the reactions. It's terrible. A man in Pakistan was arrested for roaming the streets on New Year's Eve dressed as a werewolf to scare people. Now, thank goodness we don't have to deal with anything that stupid here in America. Oh, damn it. Which brings me to the big story this week, the riot in Washington. Now, let me be clear, I'm openly conservative, I voted for Trump, but what happened was disgraceful. No conservative person should have any problem condemning the violence, condemning Trump's reaction and handling of the whole situation. It was terrible, it was an embarrassment to conservatives. And to everyone on the left, if you're going to condemn this, then I hope you also condemned a year of leftist violence that plagued this country. Don't condemn the Stop the Steal riot if you didn't also condemn all the Let's Go Steal riots. But here's what happened. A bunch of idiots decided to storm the Capitol building, including this man dressed as Vanessa Hudgens. Apparently calls himself the QAnon shaman. He both supports QAnon and is a shaman, so he combined two bullshit belief systems into one character. This is true, though. He is the only man whose tribal tattoos are the second or third worst decision he's ever made. Here to talk about that and more is the founder of Lone Conservative, Kassy Dillon.
Hi, Kassy. Thanks so much for being here on Canceled News.
Oh, well, thank you. It's a pleasure.
So if any of my viewers don't know, you founded Lone Conservative. Tell them a little bit what that is and how you started it.
So I founded a platform for college students to kind of voice their opinions, but it wasn't really what gave me my huge platform that I have now, and I'm very fortunate to have. What actually started it was a crazy protester at UMass Amherst. She melted down, and the internet calls her Trigglypuff.
You actually encountered Trigglypuff?
Oh, I caught Trigglypuff.
Really?
Caught her on camera, and she kind of was the face of the social justice warrior movement.
But what was the situation that Trigglypuff was involved in?
Well, there are some speakers at UMass Amherst, which, by the way, she's not a student there. So she went from her school to a different school and shouted at these speakers to get their hate speech off of their campus, even though it's not her campus. And then she tried to get me expelled from my school, which also isn't her school, and neither is UMass Amherst. So she just put herself into the chaos, and I caught her on camera and I showed it. And then I started talking about it, and that's what really started my platform. But it's come a long way since then, including founding. So
Trigglypuff was a blessing in disguise.
She was. I'm sorry all the bullying she's gotten, but
yeah.
I mean, there's enough content there of her acting crazy to criticize rather than going after her looks, and I haven't heard from her since.
And so Lone Conservative, it's geared towards college students, correct?
Yes, so we have some recent grads too, but we also have some high schoolers. So it's for students to talk about conservatism, kind of develop it, but also talk about things on their campus. So we've actually had 500 contributors in the last few years. And I'm starting to feel old now because a lot of them are a lot younger than me at this point, but it's a great community. And we also get them internships. We pitch them to other outlets to get them more bylines. So it's kind of like a way to get into the conservative media.
And it's also great because it's hard to be an outspoken conservative on college campuses. And it's good that there's an organization like yours that's, helping people have a voice in that situation.
Oh, 100%. When you hear the word lone conservative, I actually mean I was the only one. I went to an all-women's college, or historically all-women's college, they call it now. And my first day at orientation, they brought a student on stage and cut off her ponytail to get rid of the patriarchy. And I was like, what is happening? And I wasn't even political then. I wanted to go into the military and become a lawyer.
That's what happened. I remember the day the patriarchy went away, but I didn't know why. It must have been because that was right when they cut off that girl's ponytail.
Yeah, they cut off the ponytail.
And then it was done. Yeah. So then, when I first asked you to be on the show, I've wanted you to be on for a little while, and you said you'd be on, and then you said as long as there's no election talk, and I was fine with that because I was fine, kind of over election talk. And then this Wednesday happened. There was this horrible meltdown in the Capitol. What is your take on it?
It's a big question. So I supported Trump since before he was elected. So I've, a lot of conservatives have jumped on after he got elected and grifted their way in.
I jumped on afterwards. I was never Trump conservative, and then he won me over with policy. And there's, it's that thing. Some of the stuff he does, I agree with. Some of it I didn't. And this was obviously something that I don't agree with.
Yeah, I hopped on when he got the nomination. And, he's done a lot of good. And I've been criticizing him when he does things I don't like. I really focus on Middle Eastern policy. That's why I went to the front lines against ISIS for a documentary, by the way. I was not fighting there.
Yeah.
So I've criticized him a lot, especially with the Kurdish issue. I was not okay with that. So I think he's done a lot of good policy-wise. I think his foreign policy is not terrible at all. I think that's something that Republicans should embrace instead of trying to have all these endless wars. So I stand by my support of his policies too, but I think he's at this point where, he's had a very successful career where he's always gotten what he wants, and he did not get what he wants this time. And he's lashing out about it. A bunch of people from his administration are resigning. And even though he did put out a tweet saying, hey guys, be peaceful, he didn't tell people to leave right away. It took a video message to come out of him saying, okay, leave.
Yeah,
but these people are in
very
Washington,
emphatic,
D.C.
yeah.
Exactly. And you're in Washington, D.C. If you've ever been to an inauguration or a march in D.C., which I have, you lose cell phone service. There's too many people there. They're not seeing what he says. He should have said during his speech, go to the Capitol and sit down. Go occupy it from the outside. If they would have done something like that, where they, camped out, they did a protest like that, rather than having these crazies breaking in, I think it would have been a lot more successful. And I do want to say there were a lot of Trump supporters there who were pulling the people breaking the windows off. It did happen. There's videos of that. However, you have these elderly people also entering the Capitol. I don't know if they thought it was okay, but if you saw broken glass and police scattered everywhere, they should have known, do not go in this building. But then you also have the opportunists like Mr. Viking who went in and sat down in the Senate.
That's going to be like the first 2021 topical Halloween costume this year.
Exactly. And by the way, you're not allowed to sit in that chair even on tours. It's really hard to get on the House floor. Usually you get a gallery pass. You have to be taken by a member to go into the House floor. So you
know a lot about that chair.
Have you
sat there?
I actually have sat there. But I was with a member. So I'm very sad to see what happened. And I'm sad to see people lying about it. We're seeing this narrative. Well, first of all, most conservatives have denounced this. I'm talking public conservatives.
Yeah.
Now, regular people who are conservatives, no, they're not really denouncing, or some people are, but a lot of people are also mad. And I know this because I denounced it and I have lost followers, which whatever. But also I've had people tell me I'm a coward. I need to fight back. What do you expect to happen if you don't use violence? This is a resistance. That's what the left said this summer. Yeah. So I don't see the difference of it.
And that's
I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah. So I'm much on the same page as you with all of it. I think conservatives should be denouncing it. I don't like seeing these like conspiracy theories that it was really Antifa. Now I know there was some Antifa members there in the area, but the people that are on video breaking in, there's a lot of these memes now saying, no, this guy was secretly Antifa. That's all been debunked. And I think what disappoints me is I would like to see all conservatives condemn what happened, but at the same time, I think it's hypocritical for people on the left to be moralizing and preaching about it when there was leftist violence for 9 months that was not condemned in nearly the same definitive way that they're now turning on this. Mm-hmm. But I think what worries me, beyond just sort of the tragedy that it was for the country and the loss of life that happened there, is as someone who is a conservative person and sort of likes a lot of Trump's policies, this is now what will define his presidency, I think.
We lost some more high ground.
There's very little way to make any of the arguments that conservative people were making and the gains that they made for the past 4 years when it ended like this. Those people undercut the conservative movement. And what I get frustrated with is it seems within the sort of Trump supporting base, there's people like myself who have an allegiance to conservative values. And then there are people who have an allegiance to Trump as a person. And there seem to be people that sort of go along with whatever sort of claims he makes. And their allegiance is, in some cases, to like QAnon and to conspiracy theories, rather than like conservative values themselves and what policies and candidates are going to be the best for that.
Well, absolutely. So I give speeches around the world, I guess you could say, but I give a lot of speeches on college campuses. And what I always start with is a video showing people melting down in college campuses and breaking things. We lost some moral high ground.
Yeah.
I used to say, show me an instance of conservative protesters breaking things. Well, now we got one.
Now
in
they
the
have
Capitol.
it. Yes.
Now
exactly.
they have it. And I don't really like whataboutism, but you have to use it here because by not denouncing what happened this summer, you have created an environment where people feel that it's justified to use violence.
Yeah.
You have Republicans denouncing what happened in the summer. But right now, you have Democrats also denouncing it. They did denounce what happened in the summer.
Yeah,
Protests are supposed to make you uncomfortable.
But that's exactly. There was people calling for unrest in the streets, and not just the sort of political leaders, but on Facebook, I would see things like, well, they have to steal and loot to get your attention because of this injustice. I saw things like, well, buildings have insurance, so it's okay to destroy them and stuff like that.
Which is not true.
It's like, no, that's never okay. And as far as whataboutism goes, like, I think whataboutism, it's a problem when it's used to sort of excuse behaviors and sort of distract. I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing when you're just calling for consistent treatment. I don't think whataboutism is bad when you're saying, here's these two examples, and you need to treat them both sort of morally and intellectually consistently. And that's kind of, how I feel about it. It's like, yeah, the violence that the left engaged in all summer was wrong, and what happened on Wednesday was wrong.
Yeah, so I think what happened in the Capitol is completely wrong, and I'm going to start by saying that. But also, when we had the riots ruining small businesses in Los Angeles, where I used to live, I don't know how you're still there.
Yeah, I'm still here.
That was destroying.
All boarded up now.
Yeah, right. That was destroying people's lives. What happened here was you attacked a historical building, which I think is wrong, but they fixed it. People did get hurt. I'm not going to say they didn't. People did get hurt, but you have these people completely losing their livelihoods. And so we need a precedent where all of it is denounced. I don't want to see any of this political violence. I want people to act normally.
The country's in a difficult spot, and it's bad because I see, what happened on Wednesday, especially the people that actually physically broke into the House chamber and stuff like that, to disrupt this vote, which I don't know why they thought Mike Pence was going to overturn the election in the first place. I thought that was sort of
he clearly said he wasn't.
That was a dumb thing to expect that was going to happen. But I see that as sort of a threat on democracy and the Constitution. And then on the left, you have people who I think are attacking freedom of speech. I think some of the lockdown orders overstep the boundaries of what should be legal and constitutional. And it's hard, like you said, there should be these ideas that unify us as Americans, and you kind of have extremes on both sides moving further and further away from that.
I think there's historical precedents for this too. And I'm not a classics expert, but this reminds me of Athens, when they were at war with Sparta, and then they closed their borders and they had a pandemic and it killed a lot of their politicians. And I'm not saying that happened, but there was political turmoil after a pandemic. And this has happened several times in history. And I wonder if this would have happened had coronavirus not happened. Would Trump even have lost? I mean, the economy was doing so well. So I think having the pandemic and the election and everything happening together at once, and then Georgia the day before they stormed the Capitol, it was the perfect storm. And it caused chaos.
If I was more educated and had learned about that, it would have reminded me of Athens too.
Gotta read Thucydides.
So thank you so much for being here. If people want to follow you, let my viewers know where can they find Lone Conservative, and where should they follow you?
So you should definitely follow Lone Conservative, especially if you're a college student and want to get into media. You can follow them on LO Conservative on Twitter. And then I'm just Kassy Dillon, Kassy with a K. So. Cool. And TikTok. Follow me on TikTok.
Yeah, make sure you follow Kassy on TikTok, because I'm not on there. All right, thanks so much for being here, Kassy.
Thank you.
I want to thank Kassy for being here. Please be sure to tune in next week. Please like, follow, and subscribe. Now I'm going to get back to Kung Flu fighting. Oh yeah, it's completely gone now.